Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show, and today I am excited. We got to visit for a few minutes before we actually started the recording, and man, this guy is on fire. So his name is Robb Munger. Do you prefer Rob or Robert? Actually, I should ask that before.
Rob. I go by Rob.
Okay, perfect. So Robb Munger, but what's cool about this individual is he is not from this space, but he was urged into this space by some close advisors of his. So he's a founder of Exodus Place, entrepreneur, corporate culture coach. That's huge. If you can't have a culture, you don't have anything in your business. You don't really probably have a business, because as soon as you're gone, it disperses. So real estate developer, and then he's also an author. So I'm just super excited to interview you and get to know, have a conversation. We've already had a great conversation earlier. But go ahead and share with us, how did you get to where you are? Why did you choose to be there? Maybe even start a little bit in early childhood. What was your family life like growing up?
Well, the typical Midwest Michigan family lived just by the capital, Lansing, Michigan, just in a bedroom community. And it's something how life's changed now. In a small community back in the 70s and 80s, we didn't have internet. I still remember the party line. You could hear your neighbors on the telephone line. So that's where I really grew up. And then graduated from high school, and before I graduated from high school, I was going to go to West Point, but that was a 10-year commitment, and when you're 18 years old, that sounded like it was just way too long for a person like me. So I went to a military college in Alabama, a private one, and got a commission in the Army. And so that really opened up my mind even more to what was available in the United States and in life. Growing up, I typically always had 3 jobs. I worked construction with my father's real estate business, baked groceries, and then I'd mow yards too. So I really was always entrepreneurial. I love business.
And what was that? So when you say you always had, you always had 3 jobs. What were all the industries that you ever touched? Was it always similar, close to real estate? I know you mentioned grocery stores, but what were some of the other things that you tried out on your path to deciding what you ultimately wanted to do?
Great question. When I got out of college and I got my commission in the military, I liked the military because it created structure for me, and I really enjoyed the people I worked with. But I was always an entrepreneur at heart, so I ended up becoming. I had did a emphasis in real estate and finance in college for my 4-year degree. I realized I didn't really want to sit at just a desk like some of the bankers for that path with the management admin. And so I ended up becoming a commercial real estate broker. Didn't really like that in my path at that time, and ended up transitioning to working for a builder in sales, and actually sold all of his product out. And so I sold myself out of a job, and which, when you're in your 20s and you come from a small town, it was in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So it was, back then there was probably 100,000 people. So it was a sizable community. And I ended up transitioning from that to being a real estate broker for myself, grew that company, and then ended up getting business coaching and was told, they looked at all the numbers. I was the number one salesperson as the real estate broker. And so I was actually subsidizing the overhead for everybody else. And this advisor says, hey, fire everybody, keep like 3 producers. Other than that, let's downsize, get your overhead way down. And I did that. And it was funny. I went from, even though I was grossing 6 figures, I was bringing home less than $20,000 a year when I had all the agents. And so I fired everybody. The next year, full calendar year, I ended up making, I believe it was over $200,000. So I 10x my salary by looking at strategy and really looking at numbers and saying, hey, what works, what doesn't? And in the ego thing, when you're young, well, everybody has this ego at times. And so when you downsize, you think, well, I'm just a mom and pop. But the reality is I was making more money. And by doing that, I was able to start getting back into investing in real estate. I bought my first duplex when I was 17 years old. My father had to sign the power of attorney to allow me to buy property because I wasn't 18 years old. I was an adult. And so I got back to buying real estate. I ended up working for a real estate developer, brokering his properties, and they were having financial trouble. So I was covering all of their day-to-day expenses, or pretty much all of them. And then I got a big commission check, and one of the partners cussed me out because I was making more than him. And at that point, I realized, you know what? I have enough money. I can just go out and start doing land developments and projects myself. I don't need to work for somebody else and have them chew me out for doing exactly what I was supposed to do. And at that time, this is a large condo project. It was in forbearance. So it was getting ready to go back to the bank, and I kept it out of foreclosure too for these guys. And they were just, 2 of the partners were very thankful. The one wasn't. And that pain point pushed me to risk, because you start getting comfortable, especially when you start making a decent wage. And I had the country club membership, nice cars. I'm like, hey, this is a lot nicer than this, farm community, bedroom community from Lansing, where people are building cars in Lansing. So I ended up having to take all of my cash, bought a piece of property, and I did a gated community in Grand Rapids. And since I knew the sales portion and I was very good at sales, I ended up selling all the lots, which was nice. I ended up doing it for myself, paid myself a commission, and then I rolled all the profit back into other projects. And by doing that, I moved my business from a brokerage business where it was still paying me well, but I ended up going to the development business, and I did about 2,000 residential lots over my career. And it's a lot, but at the same time, you hear of Pulte and them, they'll do 2,000 lots probably in a month, or a couple months. So it was a different size, but for just a person that didn't have partners to do that many, it worked out well for me. And during that process, I ended up starting through help and connections, a floor plan company where we ended up floor planning about 4,000 mobile homes for mobile home dealers. So I financed all those mobile homes. So that just expanded my cash and then my enterprise, and allowed me to grow, and ended up selling that business.
Okay, I have lots of questions here, but I want to. No, it's so good. I love this. I'm so excited about this conversation. Before I jump into that history though, and start pulling stuff out, what was your original desire to go into the military? Like nothing you've described really, other than the structure of the military. Why did you, from growing up in this kind of bedroom community, like you mentioned? Why did you choose the military as your step forward rather than just going to college or just going and doing something else?
Great question. My parents were getting a divorce, and we pretty much had the Leave It to Beaver family for a long time. And then there was some significant issues with my parents' marriage, and I wasn't getting the support from my parents at that time, because I was on a pathway of, hey, finish high school, go to a 4-year college, and that was the direction I was going. When I lost the support with my family, and somebody, a recruiter from West Point said, hey, you ought to look at going to West Point. And so I did college and the military, and he talked about structure. That's what really got me focused on that. And I understood at my age, at 16, 17 years old, I was acting up. You would go out drinking beer and doing, nothing that was severe, but it wasn't how I was brought up. And so I said, hey, I really need to get some structure. And if my parents aren't going to give it to me, I need to find it somewhere else. And I figured if I went to Michigan State University, I'd probably end up partying a little bit more than what I should have. And so it was self-accountability.
Well, and the reason I want to drive into that is because the purpose of this podcast, like I mentioned before we started, we really want to find the questions that improve people's lives. And there's so many people who are not asking that question at 16. They're not asking that question at 45 and in today's world, right? They're still living the unaccountable life. And you were aware enough at 16, 14, whatever age it was, you know what? I want to be better. I want to have more structure. I want to have this. There was a desire. Where did that desire come from? Did you see somebody who had more structure in their life and see those results and say, man, I actually want that. I don't want this other pathway. Because most 16-year-olds, at least today, that's a lot like, and like I say, not just 16. I think there's a lot of 45-year-olds who still haven't figured their life out. And they're still thinking, why can't we just have it easy, fun times all the time? Why do we actually have to work? Why do we have to have structure? And they think structure is binding when my belief is structure is the most liberating thing ever, especially when you understand that you get to control your structure. Then you get to structure your life exactly what you want. And by having structure, you actually have freedom. But if you choose the chaos never builds into structure, but structure doesn't dissolve into chaos unless it's unfocused. And so what is that thing that gave you the insight, man, I actually want structure in my life?
Great question. And I agree with you. I actually tell people, don't ask a dumb question. And they say all questions are good questions, and they're not. And unfortunately, our society right now believes that. There are dumb questions. I mean, I'll get a question, can I go to the bathroom? But that's a dumb question.
Right now.
You don't ask me at this level if you can go to the bathroom. You're a grown adult. Now I work with this nonprofit situation, but not everybody will ask that question. But what I saw, Samuel, was there is a gentleman that owned a bunch of dry cleaning companies, and I ended up going over to his house, and I saw all of his nice stuff. His house was very, very organized. It was new cars. He discussed his business. It was all structured. It was a linear communication in how he discussed things. I also mowed a yard for a gentleman that used to own a foundry in the area. And likewise, and it was kind of nice. I was in 8th grade, so let's say 13 years old. I was mowing his yard, and it was right on a lake, and he had one of the biggest houses on a lake. And Don Gardner would say, hey, don't do what the other kids are doing. you can be anything you want, but you're gonna have to work. And I'd work hard for the guy, and then he'd pay me, and he would sit down and he was always asking me, "You want lemonade afterwards?" So I'd have lemonade with him on his porch. And he was probably in the 70s at that time, or 80s. And he would talk to me, and he would talk to me about structure. And he says, "Okay, you're mowing my yard. I know you're working at the hardware down on the lake and the beach. And then I know you do stuff with your dad." He says, "That's all great, but you're going to have to get to a point where you have structure in your life. And and you're going to need to have employees, and you're going to have to be able to manage this. And you can't just half-ass it, and you can't do all the work yourself. So you're going to have some structure." And then my father did the same thing. He was big on working hard. And so that structure and that work ethic just kept getting built into me. And it was never expected that money was just going to come to me. I think I had an allowance when I was very little. Maybe, I don't even think I really had an allowance when I was little, because my father would make me work and my mom would make me work for all the money. There was no free lunch. And whereas these kids nowadays, and I've had conversation with close family members too, they think they're owed money, and no, you're not. Nobody's owed any money. You need to get off your ass and work, and you need to be smart. And if you're smart and you don't want to do physical work, that's fine. But you need to have structure, and you have to be smart. And ask smart questions. You can't be asking stupid questions, and you can't just be sitting twiddling your thumb on Instagram, because you're consuming stuff. You're not producing stuff. Like today, you're producing something, and you're sharing, and that's creating a value. And so going all the way back to in the early days, is I was watching guys. I was around men, and then also there were some successful women too that just said, "Hey, if you want to get ahead, you better, really create structure and be smart and be willing to work for it."
I think that's awesome. So the question then I would say is, you go and you see these people. They're a good mentor of mine. He says that the two things people want to know is, why should I listen to you? That's the first question. And then, can I get what you have? Right? Why should I listen to you? And can I actually achieve what you have? And if you can answer those two questions, why should I listen to you? And can I actually get what you have? Then you actually are able to help a lot more people if you can answer that question for them. And that's why I want to tie into that, because why should I listen to you? Because you lived it, right? You actually had a lot of experiences, but more importantly, you were asking that question. Hey, why should I listen to this old guy on the porch? Why should I listen to my dad? Why? Well, they have what I want. So then the question is, can I have what they have? Can I have the nice house? Can I have the big yard? Can I have the nice cars? And what's cool is the answer to that question is always a yes, if you do what's necessary to get it. And I think just because we do live in a different generation from 30 years ago or 40 years ago, hard work, I don't think means the same thing it meant back in the blue collar days. Not that that's not a great way to go make money now. In fact, I think blue collar is going to make a resurgent because so many people have swung away from it that now the pay for actual hard labor is going to go up substantially. But you can work focused. You can provide value. I like to think of my life as like, you have to provide value in the marketplace. And if you want to do that through your mind and through creation of content, wonderful. As long as you're providing value, then that's where the money comes in. And so that question of, man, why should I listen to them? And can I actually have what they have? Those are great questions. So once you answer those questions, if the answer to that question is, yes, I can, which by the way, the answer to the question is, yes, you can. Everybody started somewhere. Zuckerberg started somewhere. Bezos started somewhere. Gates started somewhere. Warren Buffett started somewhere. George Soros started somewhere. Like everybody started somewhere. Nobody got a free lunch. Everybody. And they say, oh, well, Donald Trump said his dad gave him a A small loan of $1 million. Well, compared to the billions of dollars that he's created, it was a small loan. That's like your dad who makes $50,000 a year or $100,000 a year giving you $10. Guess what? Yeah, he gave him a small loan of $1 million compared to what he's created from it. What have you created with the $10 they gave you for your allowance? Anything? No, nothing. So most people, nothing. They went and bought stuff.
Right. They're consuming it. They're not multiplying it.
Yeah. So like, yeah, for him, it was a small loan. But I think that that's such a crucial question. Having mentors, my story is very similar to yours, where I realized when I was 14, I realized it more of a religious perspective that if I wanted to stay in the religion that I was brought up in, that I needed to move out because there were things shifting in my family's life where members of my family were choosing not to continue in that religion. And I said, look, I've got to move out. So I actually moved out when I was 14, 15 years old, in with my second oldest brother, specifically to create the environment that I wanted to exist in. And I had also worked lots of lemonade breaks with this nice lady in our church congregation, in our community, who would let my brother and her go. And we rototilled the garden, we cut the grass, we trimmed trees, we did everything. And probably she did more than we did, honestly. If we're being honest, she probably worked harder than we did, but she allowed us to work alongside her, and she paid us $2 or $3 an hour. It wasn't a lot, but we learned hard work. We learned the value of a dollar. And most of all, I think we learned that we could build whatever we wanted. I think that those are, as we're going to enter into some of my future questions, those key principles that you learned at a young age, I feel like those are the things that most people miss. And then they get to 40 years old and they're wondering why they never ended up where they wanted to go. It's because they never chose to structure their future.
You're exactly right.
So thank you for diving down that. Now I want to go back into your real estate. So you got out of the military and you get into you studied real estate and finance. Why did you not like commercial real estate? Just curious. Because right now I feel like there's a divide where some people say, oh, real estate's bad right now. Well, I know a lot of people making money in fix and flips. I know a lot of people making money. There's not as many people making money as realtors, but residential real estate. On the commercial real estate, they're like, depending on your type of real estate you're in the commercial side, money's never been better. So what did you not like about commercial real estate?
Well, at that time, I had been doing apartment buildings with my father, and then also some spec homes. And so what transpired was when I started doing the commercial real estate, it was industrial buildings. And so I was selling just a blank building, and I was 23 at the time, or leasing just an empty building. And a couple things were happening. One, I was looked down upon because I was too young. And that was their story. I didn't have enough experience. And then secondly, I wasn't from the area in Grand Rapids. And it was a very close-knit Dutch community. And the joke was, hey, if you're not Dutch, you're not much. So I ended up telling people I was Dutch. They'd ask me, what nationality is Munger? And I said, Dutch. And, so I started trying to get in. But it just got to be a bit of an issue with relationship. I wasn't right working there.
That's awesome. So I think that's another thing people, and we're going to get into this, have a few more questions about it. But when you're when you're doing something you're not passionate about, or it just doesn't fit, inside your gut often that it's not working. But so many people stay in those areas because they think the money demands that they stay, rather than going and doing something they're passionate about. I think a good question, not that you can always do. I don't think that you should quit your job and go just chase what you're passionate about all the time. So don't take what I'm going to say the wrong way, or actually I said to quit my job and go. No, that's not what I said. Okay. But I do believe that asking yourself, what are you passionate about? Some of the questions I ask myself every morning, I actually got these from Ed Milet. I don't know where. Maybe it was just an audio recording that he had shared one day, but it's asking, like, what am I most excited about today? What am I most happy about? What makes me proud? What am I grateful for? What do I enjoy most in my life right now? What am I committed to my life right now? And how does that make me feel? Who loves me? Who do I love? What about me is loving, right? Like identifying these questions so that you can really drive that. I think for you, what I'm hearing is, commercial real estate, it just didn't feel right. Maybe it was elements of your character that you knew you had to lie to be successful in. So it's just like, could I keep doing this? Maybe, but it's not who I am. And if that's the case in that environment right then it just doesn't make sense. Doesn't mean it'll never make sense, but right then under those circumstances, it doesn't make sense.
You're exactly right. Because I'm back, all I have pretty much is commercial real estate other than my personal house and a little, some executive condo. But everything else I have is commercial office buildings, self-storage. So just in your path, sometimes it just doesn't work. And I could have kept trying to force it, and it probably would have ended up out of real estate. But I shifted to working with a builder at that time, and I didn't really like, in one sense, working with just the consumer, residential consumer, because I was more fit for business. But at the same time, it met my needs because I was new to the area. So all of a sudden I started getting some social feedback, which helped motivate me to sell more. And I got over my stigma that, hey, I'm going to have to be handing out cookbooks and all this other stuff. That's not me. And so working with a builder, it was a good hybrid for where I was at. So I was with the guys that are, slamming nails. And then, so it worked really well. And I was able to grow a good foundation. And then, once, I matured and some different things happened, really, I've been pretty much commercial for the last 25 years.
Yeah, no, I wanted to highlight that because something didn't work the first time, going back to these questions, I think a good question is, was it the right time? Was it with the right people? What did not work about it? So we can identify and try again, because so many people, they go dip their toe in something, say, "Ooh, that water's cold. I don't like that water." But they have no idea. Okay. I'm going to use an example from my life.
You're right.
We Airbnb out our house when we travel. Not all the time, but sometimes. And our swimming pool is like 60 degrees right now, which I jump in it right now as a cold plunge because I'm from Arizona and that's cold for me in Arizona. But we're gone, and these people came down from, I think one of them was from Michigan actually, and they're swimming in it like every day, all day. I'm just like, what? 60-degree water. Like, this is ridiculous. How are they having fun in this water? I sit in there to punish myself, and they're having fun in this. It doesn't make sense. The difference is their body is climatized to a colder environment. So when they get in that water's warm. When I get in that water's cold. So based on where you're at in your life, the same activity may be different. And understanding that, I know that when I moved from Utah to Arizona, my blood thinned, and I'm like, I really like warm weather. I'm a lizard now. But we were just up in Utah, and everybody else are walking around in t-shirts and they don't need a jacket on. And I'm like bundled up because it's cold for me. So understanding the season of your life that you're in is a large part of what you've created and where you choose to be. So just because something didn't work out the first time doesn't mean you can't recircle and hit it the second time. So rather than saying no to something, say not right now, just in life. Not right now. Hey, right now it doesn't make sense. Right now it doesn't make sense. That leaves you open with the freedom to structure your life a different way, and maybe it makes sense to circle back with it later. So I want to go back into this though, because you mentioned that you we're going to skip that one for sake of time, but okay. So this next one. So you had your real estate brokerage, your residential brokerage, and you got these agents that are producing, but you're not really making money. So right. When did you, because you've had this business bug for a while. You've wanted to be a business owner, sounds like. You like the business side of things. Yep. You got into sales, absolutely essential skill, I believe, for everybody to learn. Doesn't matter what age you got to learn sales. So go find a sales job, cut your teeth on something hard, I think, with little reward is the best way for 2 or 3 years. So you just learn You get over the fear, you get over the stink of it, and you just deal with it. But here's what I want to ask. When did you realize that you were self-employed and not a business owner? Like, it sounds like your business coach came and said, hey, dude, you should fire your team pretty much and just be self-employed. You'd make more money if you were self-employed versus a business owner, or
you nailed
a pretend
it.
business owner, because you weren't really a business owner. You were a pretend business owner. And most people don't know that difference. And some people would say, well, you should, rather than give up your business, you should go back into being a business owner. But you chose to give up the business and go into being self-employed for a little bit longer. So talk about that mindset, why you chose it, rather than just making your team more productive and actually be a business owner at that
Great question. It really came down to the business coach. And my end goal was always to get into real estate developing and investing. It wasn't to be a real estate broker. So great question. And so I wasn't a good manager. I wasn't a good broker. Okay. And I know that's hard for people to hear. And then when, to be a really good, I'm a good businessman now. I mean, I can run a business. I know how to do it. I'm solid with it. At that age, I was not good. I had the impression of how it should look like, but just because you can understand a P&L and a balance sheet, it doesn't mean you understand the org chart and execution. I get asked to help small businesses from bankers and insurance companies say, hey, I have a person that's in trouble. And really they were let's say a good plumber or a good mason or a good electrician. And then they thought, well, since I'm so good, I'll be a great business owner. Well, no, you're a great electrician. You're not. And so that's really where I was at. I got so good with the sales because I was forced to sell a lot to keep profitable with my business and also pay myself, that I ended up learning sales to an extreme. And then when I got rid of the anchor, all of a sudden the cash came in and I'm like, oh, okay, now I can get to what I really wanted to do. Because I always wanted to be in real estate investing. It was not to be a broker. It's never. In fact, I have a broker's license right now, Samuel, and I haven't sold a piece of real estate in probably 17 years. So that gives you an idea. I mean, I just don't have a passion for it.
Yeah, no, and I have on my paper, because I wanted to ask that question, because through your notes, that's what I felt like was the answer. It says back to investing, because that was the goal. If you can get, the ego gets in the way when you're worried about how other people perceive you. Other people thought you were a business owner. Other people thought something, but you didn't even want to be known for that. When I was in college, I was studying neuropsychology. I love neuropsychology. Like, I still read books on it just because it's fascinating how our minds work. But I had a really great teacher, and she said, dude, you need to go interview people who are in the career that you want to be in and find out if this is your mountain to die on. Is this your mountain to die on? Because if it's not, don't go all the way. Get on somebody else's mountain, because the last thing you want to do is climb somebody else's mountain, get to the top of it, and feel like you're stuck on top of the mountain, because everybody will judge you if you climb back down that mountain and go up another one. And I was like, that's some good advice. And so I went and I interviewed people. I was like, you know what? I think this stuff is absolutely essential in the marketplace. People need to study neuropsychology. People need to help people restructure their past, restructure their minds. Like, all of that needs to happen 100%. Not by me. Not by me. And I switched because my end goal was never, and even now I work in the financial industry. My end goal was never psychology. My end goal was never finances. My end goal, and what guides all of my choices, is saving families and children, marriages from anxiety, depression, suicide, domestic violence, addictions. And that's my end goal, like 100%. And I have friends and people in different companies say, hey, you should come do this company. You should come do this company. Hey, it doesn't fulfill my end goal. Well, there's more money over here. I don't care about the money. That's not what I'm doing. And it's hard for people who see money as the objective to get somebody else's dream. right? Because money's just part of an objective. But when you can say, look, my dream is the service. I could go work with the top 1% of America and make more money. But then I don't get the fulfillment of working with a person, teaching them how to save $200 a month. The fulfillment is way more for me. Maybe it's just selfish, and that's fine. I'd rather be selfishly poor than miserably rich. Not fun. So like, what one do you want to choose? And you wanted to get back to investing, and you had to get the ego out of the way because you never wanted to be a business owner. You wanted to be an investor. That's my take on what you said and what I wrote down. I just wanted.
You're right.
Cool. I think that's amazing. That's so cool. When did you decide you wanted to be the investor rather than the business owner or the salesperson? Because obviously you learned skills and you knew how to do it. And sometimes you have to do things for a short time that you don't love to do, but you know it's the fastest path to get there. So you just do it. You go sell out a whole development. Why? Because you need the cash so you can go do what you want to do. And so you learn the skill and you do it so you can get there. But when did you decide, I really want to be a business and I want to be a business or real estate investor, not an owner?
Really back when I was probably 15 years old. And so doing all the other stuff, that was a detour in my career path. Because at 15, talking to like this Don Gardner and the gentleman that owned the dry cleaners. I think the dry cleaner franchise is gone now, but he had created a franchise system. So he was doing very well. So I always wanted to be an investor. But financially, I just couldn't do it. And so it's where just hard work. I had to keep building up until I could get to where, I was at. And by the time I was 28, I was buying and flipping houses. I tell people I was buying and flipping houses before it was on TV, and I was driving a 4x4 truck or, Eddie Bauer Broncos before it was popular. And you probably,
never heard of an Eddie Bauer Bronco, but I've heard of.
Yeah. It's funny, but I mean, it was a big full-size Broncos, and I was the odd guy out because you were supposed to drive a Cadillac, back then, or Lexus was just coming out, and here I'm driving a 4x4, but my goal wasn't to be a real estate broker. It was a means to an end to get me to where I could be investing.
Well, how long from when, let's say 15 years old, when you kind of were conscious, or at least that's where you would pin it right now, aware that you want to become an investor, how long before you'd say, I've pretty much exited the business, and I know you've re-entered that side now, but and it's all business, so it's hard to say, you've exited business. But I think that was a turning point for sure when you said, hey, look, I want to be no longer be the broker, I want to be the investor. So we'll just take that as a turning point for you. How long from 15, how many years until you had made that transition and said, hey, look, I'm going to go back into investing, go buy some more real estate and get back into what I actually love? How many years?
Pretty much. I was probably 27, 28 years old.
Mm-hmm. So about 13 years?
Yep.
Okay.
And with today's technology and social media and YouTube, podcasts like here, the younger generation, I know I could have shrank that time down considerably with the knowledge that's being shared, that's available now. But like we had encyclopedias, we had dictionaries, we didn't have, I had to ask for a definition of a specific word I was writing, a letter on or email on, and I could say, hey Siri, and boom. Before I'd get up, go over to the bookcase, grab a dictionary, or if I wanted to know about a topic, I'd have to have an encyclopedia. You don't see those things anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Did they have books of the thesauruses? Like, was that a thing back then?
Oh yeah, thesauruses.
That thing is so helpful to me because sometimes I'm like, I don't like that word. I want to use a different word. But I grew up with dictionaries as well, but I didn't ever think about thesaurus. I use it all the time now, but it's so easy with like the danger. Anyways, we're going to get lost into another topic, but I don't want to. So we're not going to talk about that one for right now. But I just think this question of am I willing to put in the work to get to where I want to go? Am I willing to do the thing that I don't want to do to get to where I want to go? That's a good question to ask yourself, because it took him 13 years to go from, hey, I want to do this, I need to go build something so that I can do this. And most people can't stay focused for 30 seconds, let alone 3 months, 3 years, 13 years. They're struggling to stay focused for 3 minutes. And if that's your struggle, then you need to ask yourself, what's stealing my focus? What is stealing my focus? So that you can identify where your focus goes, because where energy goes, where focus, energy flows, where focus goes. That's what it is, right? Yep. So you've got to identify what's stealing your focus, and can you remain focused on a few simple things? And most of the thing, I think, is not the actual actions, but the dream. Because the actions changed. The actions went from selling commercial real estate to selling for builders, selling for all this other stuff. The action of what you were doing changed. And so some people say, oh, I got to do the same action for 30 days or for 5 years or whatever, and then I'm going to be successful. The actions might change, guys, but the focus of what the objective is doesn't change. In my experience, sounds like you've...
No, you're right. I mean, and you have to be tough. You have to be mentally tough and focused. And when I get called in to help, let's say, a problem company, and I look at it, and I'll give you an example. I was called in for a relatively large, it was a statewide large manufacturing company. The guy had a fax machine on his desk. He had he had 2 cell phones, and he had his desk phone. And I said, hey, you need to stay focused, man. You got this whole staff out there. No, I got it. I got it under control. And it was out of control. I said, you have all these good people. Either you're not hiring correctly, or you have control issues. But I'm called in because the bank is saying you have problems. And I mean, I'm not here. This isn't a fun, we're not discussing going to the country club to have lunch today, buddy. This is, the sirens are blaring, and you need to change your behavior. And he couldn't get past it. And so he kept having all these distractions. And he was on Facebook, and I'm like, my report back to the bank is it's an asset sale. This guy was once good at his industry. He can't focus, and he can't communicate the dream and what needs to be executed to his team. And he had some of the best equipment, manufacturing equipment in the industry. And because he couldn't focus, and he kept having these excuses, well, no, I got it covered. And I'm like, no, you don't have it covered. This is very obvious when you have this many phones and a fax machine on your desk and then email. You don't have a focused direction of where you're going, and then you can't even communicate to your staff. And so I'd walk out of the plant and I'd say, hey, what's the production today? Well, it was supposed to be this, but so-and-so decided to change it at the last minute, so we're not producing anything, so we're just sitting idle. So you have, let's say, $2-3 million piece of equipment sitting idle. Okay, just on interest carry each day, just a per diem, it's eating them alive. Plus then you have the staff, plus their benefits, plus the real estate. I'm like, I tried telling his owner, I said, you're just burning money so damn quickly. It's not funny. And he just could never get it. And it ended up being sold, it was an asset sale. And the last time I heard I think he was working at Cabela's or something. And it just, you have to stay focused. You got to be tough and stay focused and say no to things. And when you're, like my nonprofit, because we have about 40 employees there, and then like with my real estate and different projects I'm running, everybody has a great idea, and they think they can just puke that great idea on me throughout the day, and then I'm supposed to execute it. And you have to have a core mission that you can get around, and then share it with others and say, hey, we're going to execute and we're going to complete. You can have these great ideas, send them in an email, a text. I may not respond because we need to execute to win this particular inning or this particular game. But I can't just be flying off because you have a great idea, and it can be a great idea, but the critical thing is we execute. So you stabilize. For me, it's stabilize an investment or stabilize an organization so that it can keep moving forward, but not just go. It's reacting is the worst cancer in any organization. And an example, Samuel, is I tell people. We often pick up donations for our nonprofit. The driver is the lead. The person that reacts is the guy in the passenger seat, whether it's one or two people. The driver will pull up, and he literally has to tell them to get out of the truck, tell them to get on the other side of the piece of furniture or whatever donation, let's say a case of milk or produce, and you need to start loading it. They are reacting, to the driver. They're not in a strategic or tactical position. They're reacting. That's the lowest paid employee in our organization is the reactor. So if a business owner, or you or anybody else, if you're going to just keep reacting to everybody, you are doing yourself a disservice. If you want to make money, a lot of money, is if you keep reacting, you're just like that guy in the truck that I paid the minimum wage. And I told my guys this: if you want to make more money, you have to be moving up to a tactical position. You have to be thinking how to execute. But if you're only getting told to get on that end of the couch to pick it up, you're not going to get paid the most. You will get paid the least. So it's just simple things like that on how you can make more money. And but you can't let your organization be a reactor. And so that goes all the way back to that manufacturer had millions, I think a $10 million line of credit or loan. And it went all away because all he wanted to do was stay in a reaction mode, and he killed the company, and he didn't have to. So,
yeah,
my big rant. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. It's so funny because I use the word responsibility versus accountability rather than reacting versus tactical. But I think responsibility has been bastardized and actually has. You can look at a definition and they might say I'm wrong. I don't really care because this is my definition and it's the one I live by. But if you're responsible, then I don't actually want a bunch of responsible people around me, because responsible just means they have the ability to respond if they're victimized by an outward stimulus. That's useless. In society, we don't need responsible people. None of them. In fact, they can all go die on a hill altogether by themselves because they're not going to do anything. Responsible people do absolutely nothing unless they are forced to do it, or they have an outward stimulus saying this must get done. Responsible people are zombies in our society. And so I like the way that you said it. They're cancer to society. They're just don't talk to me if you're a responsible person. I'm not looking for responsible people. Accountable people are proactive. They're creative. They're thinking about how can I do something better? They vocalize it, and then they account for where they're at. They're not scared of a bad report. Accountable people aren't scared of a bad report because in their bad report, they've already accounted for how they're going to rectify their report. Accountable people act first. Anyway, so I'm all on board with that. I think it's so crucial. We have too many responsible people, or in your case, reactors, that are just freaking. Anyways, that's a whole.
I love it. I don't have responsible people that work for me. We have an avatar for all of our employees and all the contractors that work for me, and the avatar is accountable people. Okay, because responsible people, all they do is write me a report and they tell me the news.
Yeah.
Okay, they're responsible of telling me the news. Well, you know what? I don't need them. I need an accountable person that's going to move the needle, that's going to execute. don't and we do dashboards. Okay. So we measure all the matrix and metrics, but you have to have that accountable person. I made a mistake on our marketing for a nonprofit. It was $50,000. I went to my board of directors, said, hey, this line item on our financials, cost us $50K. Now they were aware of it before, but my whole board of directors said, well, thank you. We understand you're accountable for that. And I'm not scared. And there's so many people that are scared. Like you said, they want to be responsible. Well, I'm reporting the news. I don't know what you're going to do about it, Samuel, but I'm reporting the news. So this is your problem.
I'm going to fire you. That's what I'm going to do about it.
Yeah.
Out of my life. Well, and you were mentioning earlier, even before the call, how you've coached some people and they keep paying you, but they don't do anything. And that's just a responsible person. It's just somebody who, hey, I'm going to fulfill my obligation. I'm going to show up. I'm going to give you the hours every day, whatever. They're responsible for the financial commitment, but they're not accountable to their commitment. And you can't, the funniest phrase is like, oh, will you hold me accountable? There's no way that somebody else can hold you accountable. They can hold you responsible, but they can't hold you. You are the only person who can proactively, internally in your soul, choose to account for your life. And there's a death date, unbeknownst to all of us, which one is yours. And there's going to be an accounting of like what happened. And there's no way around it. Like everybody has a death date chosen. When that happens, I don't know. But anyways, that's something that I think is so crucial. And just for those of you who are in relationships, this happens in relationships. You have to have two accountable people, a responsible person and an accountable person, or a responsible person and a responsible person turns into an abusive, manipulative marriage or relationship. It doesn't turn into a healthy one. And so accountability is crucial, and you have to trust that the person you're in that relationship with also values accountability. And it's a growing process, but man, we ran out of time today. I hope that you're able to make it to this event, either this one or one soon, because I'd love to meet you in person. This has been an invigorating conversation. Any last words that you would want to share?
No, thank you for having me on, Samuel. Actually, I can say it's a great pleasure to meet you, and like minds, and I really admire you producing this and making a difference in this world.
Hey, well, I appreciate that. If somebody wanted to have you come in, look at their business, see what they could do, tell them to get focused, less distracted, whatever it is, where would they reach out to you? What's the best way to contact you, your team, or maybe they want to participate in your nonprofit or learn more about you?
Right now, the best way to reach me is through www.robbmunger.com. So you can go there, email me, so that's easy. Or Exodus Place. We're in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Take a look at that. We're different than a rescue mission. We're hybrid. I believe in, imagine we make people pay to be there, or they have to work. There's no free ride, so it's not a traditional rescue mission. And to see that, and we're actually building a standard operating procedure that we can share with other people throughout the whole country to start really cure homelessness for people. We're never going to end it, but we can start teaching other organizations how to cure it. And I've proven we can cure homelessness, just not 100%, but we can give the tools to a lot of people that can make a difference in people's lives.
Well, I'll look at that and get involved, because here's one of my other goals that I read to myself every morning, is to coach and lift up the homeless every day. Coach, because I've met a lot of homeless people who just are there as a result of falling on bad luck. And it's hard to get out once you're down, unless without a helping hand. There are some people who enjoy it or choose not to change. And those people, that's fine, whatever, live their life on the street. But if you actually want to get out, you want to become better, I think that I believe in you enough to do it. So I'll have to look into that, and then maybe we can have more of that conversation as well when we do meet.
Perfect. Thanks, Samuel.
Okay, awesome. You guys have a great day, and we'll catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy Show. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me, and if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.